I'm gonna go on to room service in just a little bit, and there's some pretty scenic parts of room service. The thing about living in Alabama is I forget that we have some really pretty scenery on our trails. You know, I'm always wanting to get out of town and go to places like Moab or Sedona or Whistler or Colorado, but I forget that people who live in those areas, they like coming to Alabama because it's a totally different type of ecosystem, and we have some really pretty trails here. And so I'm going to highlight some of those for people who may be coming from out of town, and that way they can check these things out. I was first told this by a guy who lived out in Moab, and he was just spellbound by all the tree cover. But I'm so used to it, you know, because in my opinion, the trails in so many of the states look alike. All right, so this is the rock that separates Jekyll from Hyde. What's pretty cool about this is a handful of us have ridden up this side and down the back of it. And then, of course, we started off by riding up the other side, this side right here I'm looking at, and rolling the back of it and hucking off of it. So we call that one MasterCard. I don't do that one, haven't done that in a while, but I did it both ways. I think early 50s. Only made it up the backwards way one time with actually some guys from Miami here. All right, so we're on room service. I'm gonna hit some scenic sections through here. We had a lot of rain a couple days ago. I rode on the road yesterday so I wouldn't tear up the trails. There's a little bit of water in some of the low sections, but this trail is not a flow trail, so I'm not going to tear it up. It's got a pretty good rock base to it. Whoa! Not sure what's in there. Not something you want to see whenever you're recovering from injury. Yeah, the other thing that I thought I'd do in these videos, just as a sidebar, is talk about trail progression for recovering from injury. If you were a pretty advanced rider before you got injured, what I have done is, this is probably about the hardest trail that I've done since my recovery. I started off on the gravel road. See if I can hit this a drop. Yeah, I've come a long ways there on the drops. That doesn't hurt at all. This is really pretty through here. It's kind of got a terrace to it. So this would be something, if you're not from Alabama or you haven't ridden trails like this. There's an alternate line that goes up there that's kind of fun. It's a little bit harder than this one. Definitely not ready for that one on my back yet. Definitely want to hit these rock gardens with speed. That's why I say this trail would be, if you're were a pretty advanced rider before your injury, this would be a good one to do in the sequence, because you already need to know that the worst thing you can do when you come into these little rock gardens is slow down. You got to hit them with speed, because if you don't hit them with speed, you'll stall out, and then that would be really bad for me with my back situation. So anyway, I started off with the gravel road next to Lightning. I think that's called Camp Road. I did that a bunch of times. Hill repeats just on the road. I did another video on that a while back on cornering on that road. And then I ended up having to move away from there because there are a lot of people who feel like the leash law in the park don't apply to them. So I was starting to have trouble with dogs and their owners, and last thing I need to do is get bit by a dog or have it run in front of me. All right, I gotta keep my speed up for this. All right, let off the brakes, good body position, slam through there, right on. And so basically I moved from that, when I started having that user conflict, to the road. And I'll still do that on rainy days or when the trails are way too wet to ride, and ride that road up to Peavine Falls and then back, and then ride around the park on the roads. The next thing I did was, in the progression for returning to full riding after injury, is I did Jekyll. and I just turned around at the rock. All right, now the progression after that was I'd take Jekyll to Centipede, over to Johnson's, and ride Johnson's over to the stair steps on Johnson's, and then back. I'll let him go on. Come on, man, come on. You got it, you got it, you got it. Way to go, man. Have fun, dude.
Thank you.
Most dangerous thing on a mountain bike for me is starting and stopping. That's when I'm most vulnerable, because I don't have any speed and my balance is not so good. Well, nobody's balance is good when you're going super slow. But anyway, yeah, I turned around at the stair steps, and then rode Johnson's backwards, rode Centipede backwards. Centipede was quite a challenge at first, because Centipede's gotten really rough and rocky, and there's one section going one direction where these mini rock ledges that you got to ride up, and to be honest with you, I was pretty nervous about that, because with my back recovery, I don't want to stall out and kind of like fall backwards and have to put my foot out dramatically. But when I finally ended up doing that ride, I was ready for it. So I had done enough rides on Camp Road and up to the falls on the road, asphalt, that I was prepared for it. All right, this is pretty cool. That's what I wanted to get on camera. Look at that tree. Is that neat? I don't know what that is, but we take that for granted. Stuff like that for granted in Alabama. So after I did that, Centipede back down, Jekyll back to the parking lot many times. Then I branched out and I started to hit room service, and which is what we're on right now. Was a little nervous about room service because the rock garden's a little longer and I didn't want to stall out in them, and so that's pretty much where I am now. I need to, oh wait, I left out a trail. Slingshot. I did slingshot before. By the way, I'm not hurting the trail right here. This is all rocks. I did slingshot both directions before I did Jekyll. So that was where I was in the progression. Anyway, that may help somebody.